Hello everyone, I'm Axel Zeitler. I'm one of the co-directors of the Sensor CDT.
And I'm Hamad Al-Awami. I'm a PhD student actually at the moment in physics, but I joined the program in an MRes degree, and then in the second year I joined the physics department.
Hi everyone, I'm Hassim Mahmoud, and I'm actually second year PhD student in Axel's lab, the terahertz application group, and also part of the Sensors CDT.
Cool. Hi everyone, my name is Latika Sagamba and I'm one of the course coordinators for the Sensors CDT.
Alright, so we'll go ahead and start the presentation. I'll give you a quick overview. So today we will be discussing what is the Sensor TDT program and try to hopefully address some of your questions about what the program is, how it's useful for you, what you'll be studying, and so on. And this is just this is an informal discussion. Feel free to send your questions and we will be happy to answer them throughout the webinar. Then we will go into discussing a team challenge bit, so discussing an aspect of the program that I think is bringing a lot of value to the students, and we'll bring in, I will discuss our experience in this specific team challenge, and then we will discuss, we'll go through a student experience, and that's Hasib. He will tell you about his experience, where he's from and how he got to Cambridge, and then a little bit more about himself as well, and things that could also be relevant to you in terms of applying and so on. And then we will end with about 20 minutes of Q&A. And feel free to send your question anytime during the webinar. So just a little bit about the Sensor CDT. Maybe Axel would like to discuss a little bit about what the program is.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Mohammed. I guess what we're trying to show on these slides is really give everybody a bit of a feel for what the CDT is trying to do and how it's designed and what we're all about. So as you will have seen already, the CDT itself has a theme, and the theme is on sensing. And so we really consider sensing in a really broad way, right? So all of us are doing research related to sensors, but it doesn't need to be the development of a specific electronic structure, or it doesn't have to be sensing a specific physical phenomenon, or it doesn't need to be building the software in each of those projects. But we're trying to teach in this program students from various different backgrounds the basic skills that are involved in sensing, how to put them together, not to treat a sensor as a black box, but to kind of understand what the sensor is good for, where the limitations are, and what needs to be developed in order to make it better, or what we can measure with these sensors. And then by that, do really interesting research at the cutting edge of the technology, but also provide really broad training to our graduates, right? So I guess we have these three different areas that you can see on the plot here of training, impact, and diversity, and those really are really important to our program.
Yeah. I'd like to add that sensor is not limited to electrical engineering. Sensors is a really broad field. Like, it's in the physics, computer science, engineering. It's just so diverse. Initially, before I joined the program, I thought it's just electrical engineering, but now I realize it's just quite very broad. It can encompass pretty much everything in STEM.
Yeah, and I think it's also maybe important to say at this point, we're part of this Center for Doctoral Trainings. That's a national initiative funded by the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council. And what this means essentially is that we're given, it's a competitive process. We had to apply for our center with the EPSRC, but then we were successful and given the funding to train students over this program. So it's 1 year master's and then 3 years of PhD. And so in this program, we bring together a group of students from all these different backgrounds, right? So we really have a wide range of skills and experience. And the first year, you get thrown together and you have to pick and choose and learn. Right.
Very, very multidisciplinary, and this is something I really like about this program, for sure.
Yeah, so that's roughly the outline. Now maybe let me give a bit more context about the sort of development, how we came about as a CDT. This program exists for a little while now. So the funding comes in sort of 5-year phases that we have to compete for and then renew. So the first CDT really started in 2014 and was successfully completed or will successfully complete with everyone graduating who started in the last phase of that initial CDT in 2022. So you can see on this slide here, the cohort from 2014 has now finished, and 2015 has finished, and there's still some progress in the later cohorts, of course, because the research phase will always take at least 3 years. But yeah, we've had, I mean, the statistics here on the slides really speak for themselves. We've trained 60 students in this and had lots of papers out of this. Students have gone to conferences, done the different team challenges that we'll talk about, and lots and lots of different outputs, impacts, and however you want to describe it. But I guess the exciting thing in the CDT is that given the variety of research area, the variety of people who come in, the outputs vary as well. There could be a prize, it could be a nice paper, it could be a conference visit, and so on. So we're very proud of this, and it's been running successfully for a good while now.
Yeah. And this is the title changed a little bit for the second round, and this is where we came with focusing on health and sustainable future. As you know, especially with sustainability, it's a big issue now, and this is why the program is putting a lot of emphasis there, and we think this hopefully will bring in some contribution useful for sustainability.
Yes, absolutely right, and it's a good point to emphasize really with this second phase. I mean, the CDTs don't get renewed automatically. You have to really show what your vision is for the next 5 years and convince the funders about this. And what we were thinking here was, in the first phase, we had a really broad outlook in terms of sensing, and now we want to really push the training, but also the research direction that we're engaging in tackling these 2 big areas, so healthcare and sustainability, which we think are critical challenges, of course, of our time, and where we really want to make sure that we train bright students coming forward, give them the tools to make a difference going forward.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's really important to emphasize this is about training. It's not so much exactly about what research everyone does. I mean, of course, everyone individually is passionate about what they do. Yeah? But as a program, it's about training and giving you skills and giving you a broader outlook, taking you maybe from your degree, which was specializing in, say, in chemistry, biology, or physics, or whatever other area you've done your undergraduate in, and we'll get to that a little bit later on in the discussion. But really give you this broad overview and a perspective, and then you got the freedom to play in that as well, right?
Yeah, and I would like to emphasize here is not only you're going to be developing your academic and professional skills, but also personal skills. Into, for example, in the team challenge, you learn how to work as a team. I found that experience really exceptional. It taught me a lot about working in teams, and also communication skills and other skills that also will be useful for you throughout your PhD.
Let's have a look. So yeah, just to say, another exciting aspect of the CDT is that we have a very close relationship in this program with lots of industrial partners. So we work across lots of different university departments. So lots of different researchers from across the university are represented in the program. But we're also really proud that we're working with a lot of industry partners, and so this could range from small startups, local companies around Cambridge that sort of maybe have even evolved through the university, but then also regional companies and international, multinational companies that have a link to sensing. And given the topic is really quite broad. There are sensor
Yeah.
challenges in every industry,
In
and
every industry,
and so we find that really exciting. And I guess you hear industry talks as
Yeah,
part of your
industry
program, right?
talk,
Maybe,
yes.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
something to highlight a bit.
Yeah. One thing I found really useful here is that we will have industry talks that bring to you experiences that are relevant to applications where things that it's not just research, but also how do you take this research into actually the real world and solve real problems. And these can be quite diverse. You will hear some talks that you will be wondering how come this is related to sensor, but this is just to show you how broad sensing is and how useful it could be.
Yeah, and some projects are co-funded by,
Yeah.
industrial sponsors as well, right? So we have engagement with industry could be just somebody coming in to give a talk and talk about what they do and what their challenges are maybe,
Mhm.
but it could also be a company that
Yeah.
co-sponsors a research program, right?
Yeah.
So Hasib, you're working with AstraZeneca, aren't you?
Yeah, exactly. So my PhD is funded by AstraZeneca. So at all times I have contact at AstraZeneca. If I need anything from them, there's always that option available, and they're always willing to help.
Yeah, so I think that's a nice extra
Yeah.
dimension. So not all the projects are co-funded by industry. Some are, some aren't, and so there's a mix for the students then to choose what suits them best, and
Yeah.
I guess that
Yeah.
works. Yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of the program, so there are three aspects of the program. So the first thing is principles, so learning about what is sensing is, taking courses relevant to sensing, and these could be also very, very broad courses from artificial intelligence to biomaterials to other courses that you would think are not related. For example, I took a course in climate change, and climate change in a way also relevant to sensing because you have CO2 and other things that are relevant to climate change. So you can even take courses that are just interesting for you, but then also related to sensing. And then when it comes to the system itself, where here we would cover the practical stuff. So not just a background knowledge, but also how do you build sensors, how do you take basic components like an Arduino, and then other basic sensors like light sensors, heat sensors, putting these together to make something quite useful. And this also relevant to the application bit where you take this sensor and try to come up with something interesting. And maybe later on when we talk about the team challenge, you will see how this is actually manifested in the course.
Yeah. And I guess, yeah, I mean, and then you've got the applications on top of that, right?
Yes.
So I think this also maps on the research side in a way, right? So a student, they might then pick a project where they could want to engage in trying to develop a really new sensing technology to measure something that wasn't possible to measure before, or have a higher accuracy to what's been possible before. Or a student can pick a research project more on the systems level or more on the applications level, right? And they can look, okay, we've got a sensor available with these characteristics. How does this map onto a challenge on applications or on the system side? What can we measure with it now, or how can we use the output of a sensor, interpret the output of a sensor in the context of a specific scientific, industrial, engineering challenge, right? So it's got all these facets to it, and we can play with them in that way.
Exactly. So in terms of the program itself, it's 4 years. So the first 1 year is the MRES. So there you will be studying, taking lectures, as I said, in different fields. You will give a choice of about 20 different lectures in different departments. Last year we had, or the year I did it, we had engineering, we had chemical, we had general engineering, we had computer science, and also we had physics, I think, and we we also had from our department, Chemical Engineering Biotechnology. And you will definitely find courses that are really interesting for you to take part of. And then we have short projects, and these are guided sensors and other projects as well that can help you develop an understanding of what sensors are, not just from the principle, but also holding the sensors, trying to play with them, trying to generate something through that. And then there is the 3 years PhD, where you will choose a supervisor by the end of your master's, and then you will write a research proposal, and then you will obviously be focusing most of your time on that PhD. There will be like lectures that you can join, industry lectures as Axel suggested. There will be workshops throughout the university in different departments that you can join, and other things that will be talks and seminars, conferences that also can help you build your professional and personal skills.
And I guess there's also lots of opportunity to engage with the PhD students of the different year groups as well, right? So I guess that's a useful aspect of being in the CDT.
Yes.
If you compare this to if you just did a PhD in the department individually, I guess you have this group of other students who you can always ask, or you've got access to information from all the year groups as well, right?
Yeah, actually one thing I haven't realized until I've talked to people who started immediately the PhD is they feel lonely, whereas we already a group, because you start with a cohort with 12 people and you build a really good relationship with them because you see them, and Hasib can tell you they hang out a lot, and so you don't feel, as I would say, you feel that you develop a better community rather than just starting immediately a PhD. I know friends who really feel lonely because they started alone.
And I mean, I'll touch on this later as well, and I'll give my talk, but just to emphasize that as well, one of the reasons why I was really happy with the MRes here is the opportunity to straight away integrate into a group. Definitely. And already have people, and then throughout the next 3 years, I know I will still have the people that I started with along the journey with me.
And it's also really good that you're across these different disciplines as well. So although you'll end up doing a PhD with one group specifying on one kind of research focus, you've got the cohorts that you can go back to, and then you can collaborate with for many other different things, as well as, of course, the older generation.
Yeah, so that's a really nice aspect, I think, yeah. But yeah, I guess maybe, so this is now the first year is a little bit separate from the remaining 3 years in that you really are a group and you're taught together in that first year. And we have all these funny names in Cambridge, how we called different parts of the year, so don't worry too much about it. So the academic year starts in October and then it runs until September, and at the end of September students then progress into doing their PhD. But we have 3 terms in Cambridge. The first one we call Michaelmas, but it's just October to December, really. One of those things. So what happens in that term? I guess you...
So you start taking lectures, and you can also explore other lectures as well. And then what I think is more interesting here is that this semester is more of an exploration, at least for me. I felt more exploring what sensors are, what other Cambridge environments is, and try to learn the principles and the basics that will be really useful later. I would say the first semester is less stress-free semester because very few are due, and you just explore freely the courses, and the environment as well in Cambridge.
So my comments on the first semester, I would say, is really to assess where your interests are, and to take it as sort of like your integration into Cambridge in general and into the program. As Mohammed says, it's just take the opportunity to explore. There's loads of different topics and areas, and just take your time with them. And as Mohammed said, it's quite a stress-free environment.
So as you can see in the long term, there is the mini research project, and that's where you should explore. The more you explore, I would say, in the Michaelmas, the better you will get in terms of mini research projects. So that's a project that's a research lab that you decide to do your mini PhD maybe, or mini research project that could potentially develop into your PhD. For example, I did my mini project in the same group that I decided to do my PhD in, and it's really useful to start building that connection with that group, and it takes time to choose, as Hasib said, it takes time to actually choose the right research group and take advantage of the Michael mess to explore until you find something that is really interesting for you.
Yeah, and I guess there's lots of other things in Cambridge to get to know as well,
definitely,
right? I mean, I guess what's a little bit different also is that you have your own college. So all the students have their own colleges, and again, in the college you will meet students from all different subject areas. And then there are lots of clubs and societies and things like that, right? So
just so many things.
Yeah.
You can't even find time to just do everything. It's just too many things to do. So it gives you really, really wide things to do. So you will never potentially run out of things to do in terms of clubs and society, colleges, departments, and so on.
But also, I guess the program keeps you on the straight and narrow a little bit, right? Because you've got to focus at some
exactly.
point.
you have to focus. You will learn a lot how to manage your time. I think the MRes year is helped me so much to help manage my time, because there is so many things to do in Cambridge, but then the program is also a bit intense. So, and you have to be on track, and so you will learn a lot through that year, personal, professional, and academic as well.
And I guess that in Easter term, you got to sit your exams to start off with, right? So for some of the courses that you take in the first 2 terms, there are exams that you need to pass at the beginning of that term, right?
Yes.
And then once you've had your exams, we've got the team challenge, and you'll talk in depth about this a little bit in a few minutes. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe we need to go a bit faster on.
Oh yes.
Yeah. So
catch up a bit.
catch up. So in the Michael Mess, as we said, you will take a course in Principle of Sensing, just to give you an idea what is kind of sensing projects are done in Cambridge and what sensing is, and then you can take other courses throughout as well. And as we said, there is the guided sensor project, where you learn a little bit more about sensor hands-on. There's the mini research project, which just introduces you to how to do research in a research group, and then the team challenge that we will talk about. And then this is an idea of some of the team challenges. So we have the Open Seneca that has been progressing very well. They make a sensor that measure a particle called PM2.5 particles. They have been doing amazing work. We have the Soil Camp, who also had done amazing work, and ourselves, OQ Camp, and the other ones as well. So there are 2, maybe the second part in terms of industry is relevant or not relevant, but in general there are two pathways, I would say. So the first one, if you're a normal student, you will select your supervisor for the PhD in the first year, and there are a lot of supervisors to choose from, and then you submit a research proposal. If you are in industry, maybe Axel would like to explain more.
I guess the vast majority of the students come in as what's called a normal student on the slide, right? So they arrive, and you haven't decided on a research project yet. You go through your first year, you get to know the different groups in the university. They introduce themselves. You have lectures and so on that you can meet and understand a little bit more what everyone's doing. And then you work on a PhD proposal together with the group. While some studentships that are funded by industrial partners, they're advertised already when we call for studentship applications. And we say, okay, we've got applicants for the normal program, but then we have some select projects that are already predefined together with industrial collaborators. And so your student would apply for those specifically. And in that case, there is a project already linked to the student. So you do your MRes year like everyone else does, but you already have a PhD project lined up with a specific group, and you can shape that project a little more during the first year, but it's a little bit less, it's more defined already at this point. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that would be 2 or 3 students maybe a year, I guess. That's sort of that sort of number.
And Hasib was in industry.
Yeah, so again, I'll touch on that with my my little talk, but yeah, so when I applied for AstraZeneca funded project, so I already had a small idea what my PhD was, but during the MRes year, with discussions with Axel and the contact at AstraZeneca, we just redefined or specified exactly what my PhD would be on.
Yeah. Now, in terms of application, the application process, we can discuss this a bit more in the Q&A later on as well, but we just, you see on the slides here, we have the sort of minimum requirements for entry is a good 2-1 degree or equivalent to a 2-1 in a UK university. And the exciting thing, I guess, for the studentship, from the studentship point of view, is it's fully covered on a studentship. So you have no fees, they're all covered by the studentships, and there is also a maintenance stipend that every student receives that to fund you throughout the 4 years of the entire program. In terms of the admissions process, in order, if you're interested to apply, you need to go to the website. It's the university website. There's a link on the CDT website also to that. It's just one application process for the entire university, and in that application process you can select the CDT program, and then after you send in your application, we will screen through all the applications, and then we interview promising candidates, and we will really we take the interviewing very seriously in that if you fulfill the minimum criteria for the application process, then we will very likely interview all of you who apply, and certainly we guarantee interviews for applicants from underrepresented groups in particular. So this is something we really feel strongly about in the CDT, and take that really quite seriously, and well, we take it very seriously because we're excited. We want to get the best students into the program. We want to get people who are keen and share that passion with us. So we really want to make sure that we get the best applicants from wherever you may have done your undergraduate, whatever your background is in terms of your undergraduate degree. So yeah.
And I would emphasize, when I joined the program, definitely felt immediately the sense of diversity in the program is definitely something very special in this program.
And we could talk a little bit more about that in the Q&A time as well. But just to give you some timelines here for the coming round, the key date, I guess, is the 6th of January, right? So if you want to apply, you need to have your application in by the 6th of January to qualify for the full studentships, right? So that's the one critical date to keep in mind, and it's an online application. You find the link on the website. So let's jump into this. I guess we kind of covered a lot of those aspects already, right? There's a lot going on.
Yeah, just a lot going on. a lot. You just need to pick the things that are most interesting and focus on your studies.
Yeah.
It will be a really fun experience for you.
Okay.
So now we'll move into the Team Challenge project, the OQ Camp, and we'll tell you more about, so me and Hasib were from the same cohort, and we'll tell you more about what we have done through this program. So what we were aiming to do there is to develop a system that can anonymously count individuals in different rooms, just to help minimize the number of individuals due to COVID. If you obviously you've heard about social distancing aspects of the COVID and its importance to limiting the spread of the disease. So that's what we're trying to do. And this was important because in research labs you have smaller areas, so you want to emphasize that the area is safe and also that everyone is able to work. And yeah, this is what we were trying to do, to develop a system potentially from scratch that can count individuals anonymously in research labs to help other researchers as well. see when would the room potentially be available. And we made, actually before I show you that, so these are the three aspects of, so first we wanted to make this device that monitors the movement and potentially can inform individuals of how many people are in that room. And then we developed a website where all this information can be displayed. And finally, we also developed an algorithm that can be used to allocate researchers easily because you cannot have all the researchers working at the same time. So we have to find a method that can do that easily, because doing it manually is just too complicated and very, very time consuming. So this was our cohort. We worked really hard to make that happen, and I will tell you more now. We made a video. Hopefully you will be able to watch and hear
Camp
fine.
is a project run by PhD students at the University of Cambridge, looking to monitor room occupancy to help university departments manage social distancing.
The focus of our project is to create a sensor system which can anonymously count the number of researchers in each lab in the Department of Chemical Engineering and Biotechnology. This will help individuals plan their movement throughout the department and maintain social distancing. Our plan is to use low-cost and low-resolution sensors at each lab door to monitor researchers entering and exiting the labs, with our initial testing showing that the system is accurate at determining the direction of movement.
To display the information in an accessible manner, the team decided to develop a web page that is accessed securely to view each room occupancy. The web page gives two viewing options. First, an interactive map of the department with the occupancy level in each room. And second, colorblind friendly lists showing the number of occupants in each lab.
To assist with the reopening of the department, our team came up with an algorithm which assigns researchers to available labs. This takes into account the maximum occupancy of the individual labs and the building as a whole, as well as taking into account personal circumstances of the individual researchers. This algorithm was successfully used for the first 4 weeks of reopening and was able to assign everyone who wanted to return to work a lab to do so.
We hope that this project can provide a less invasive and low-cost alternative to currently available room occupancy monitoring systems.
I hope you like the video. So this actually was one of the things that we've learned through the Sensor CDT. We took a course on video editing, so I hope that video showed you some of what we also learned in terms of video editing. Talking a little bit more about the technical details about the sensor. I hope the video gave you a quick overview of what it is, but let's go into maybe more the technical details. So it's made of potentially 4 different components. And the first component is the sensor box, and this sensor box has a thermal sensor that then can measure the distance of an individual to a room, and it can be used, and this distance can then be used to identify the movement toward potentially a door to determine if a person has entered or not. And this sensor is integrated into an Arduino, so it can be controlled. And then, because the Arduino uses a lot of energy, what we have devised there is we integrated a magnetic door sensor. So, we integrated a magnetic door sensor that then only turns on the sensor when someone opens the door, so to save a lot of energy. And finally, all the data is then moved to the Raspberry Pi that then analyze it and then take it to a web server where it's viewed in the website. So there are some requirements that we try to address through our device. So try to keep things as private as possible. Everything is anonymous. The sensor is passive, so there is no need to have an application in your phone or a badge. It's just measures the heat of individuals, so it doesn't need anything active. It's robust. It's low cost. It requires no difficult installations, and because it's battery powered. And yes, so yeah, we tried to address all of these, and I think our system was able to accomplish that. This is what our sensor looks like. You can see it on the right, And this is how it works. So basically you have this map, and you see now when somebody enters the room will change color. And this map also was made from scratch using the softwares and the coding languages you see at the bottom. And now you will see also when he left the room, the color changes. As you can see, it's something actually we're really proud of, considering most of us didn't have any experience in coding or electrical engineering. And the other thing that we have done also prior to developing this system is to develop an algorithm, as I said, to help in allocating researchers to their rooms. And so all of these devices, something we really emphasize in the sense of CDT, which is responsible research and innovation, that when you develop something, you need to be aware of what are the negative impacts, what are the positive impacts, and you try to limit the negative impacts. For example, in our sensor, we try to keep things as private as possible. The data is only accessed by a few people for a short period of time, and the data is then deleted and accessed. And to access this data, it has to be you have to have a Raven authentication, so you have to access it through a secure method. And finally, the live map is turned off when they're low occupancy, because that then to avoid identifying the individuals, basically. And these things do we all keep into account. We keep account of in our research as well in your PhD. And this is our team. And now we will move into Hasib's experience to talk about his experience in the program.
Yeah, so I'll just give a little bit of a background first, sort of like my journey to Cambridge, and then sort of my application process, my reasons, and hopefully it'll be quite useful. So to begin with, so initially I was born in Pakistan, but I moved to the UK when I was 2 years old, and I've grown up in Bradford. And in terms of education, the schools I went to, they were performing well below the national average. So when it came to sixth form and A-levels, and the decision as to what to do at university, I actually attended an open day at Cambridge to decide. I was deciding between chemical engineering and medicine, and from these open days and these talks, I realised that chemical engineering was a lot more in my interests and my skill set. So I took part in the Access to Lead scheme, which once you do a couple essays, your grade requirements are lowered. And through that I managed to get in for chemical engineering at Leeds, which was convenient since it's the next city, so I could stay at home and then commute to Leeds. So this was an integrated master's program. After 3 years I got my bachelor's, which was in 2016, and then I did a industrial year abroad in Brussels for Procter & Gamble, just to gain some insight into industry and how that works. Once after doing that, I got my master's, my final year in 2018, and graduated with a master's in engineering. And at that point I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do just yet. So 2019 sort of I took it as a gap year. I didn't want to rush into a career. I didn't want to go into something and then not be happy with it. So I really wanted to explore and see, by taking time out, what it is that I missed and what it is that I wanted to do. And then from this gap year I realised that I wanted to do a PhD, and some of the reasons I've listed here is primarily that I enjoyed learning, especially new things. I really wanted to continue with that. I felt a PhD was a good way to do that. And one of my limiting factors was that I needed something that would be fully funded. So I then started looking, and ideally it would have to be Cambridge or Oxford. Just aim for the top always.
Yeah, good.
Yes.
So I started looking for PhDs and programs and CDT programs in general, actually. And around December time, I've listed sort of a timeline of what I went through. Everyone's process might be slightly different. So around December time, I saw an advertisement for a PhD with AstraZeneca. I was advertised as part of a CDT program. And pharmaceuticals was something that was, although my background wasn't necessarily in that, it was something that did really interest me. So I had my interview around February time. and then through the application process, I did get accepted around April time. And just, I wanted to give a little insight from my interview process. I mean, Axel was at the interview, and what I gathered from it, and he can verify or disagree, I guess, is so there wasn't an insight into like technical knowledge, and I guess that comes from that we accept people from a load of different backgrounds. But the key things I got from there is what they were looking at is your confidence, what you've learned from whatever you've experienced, regardless of background, what you've done before, what you've taken away from those sort of experiences. And one of the key things is that you're determined, and you show good perseverance, that you want to learn. You won't be fazed by, I don't know, any sort of problems. You just see that as a challenge and you want to tackle it head on. And these are sort of the key things that I gathered from the interviews as to what the program looks for.
Yeah, I guess just to jump in quickly, I guess what we're looking for really is potential, right? I mean, if everybody's got the whole package already, there's nothing we can add, right? So really, I guess, don't feel like you have to be perfect in every way. We're looking for people, just like you, Hasipi, said, you're keen, you want to find out, this is research, it's a bit different to when you do an undergraduate degree, right? I mean, there's no right or wrong in the same way. You will not just be able to pass the exercise or the exam at the end, but we need that sort of excitement about the topic, and there's push and drive to make it work. So yeah, don't think like, well, this is not for me because I'm not the best at everything. We're not really looking for the best at everything. We're looking at the will to become the best at everything, right?
Exactly.
So this is really what we're trying to do, I guess. I hope anyway.
Yeah, definitely. And then finally, I'll just go over sort of my experience so far. So as I said earlier, I'm in the second year of my PhD now, in Axel's group, the Terrorist group funded by AstraZeneca. So in terms of the EMRAS year, initially when I did apply, I was wondering, I already have a master's, so why do I need to do an EMRAS year? So I just wanted to get right into the research. But after doing the EMRAS year, or quite early on in the EMRAS year, I realised that I'm actually really glad that that was included. Firstly, it was a good introduction, I guess, to sensors in general and also to Cambridge in general. One thing I learned is that Cambridge is very different to, for example, Leeds, where I did my undergraduate, and I guess to other universities in the country in general. Just the way people conduct themselves and the sort of activities over here just seemed very different. So that first year was a very good insight and introduction and integration into Cambridge as a whole. One of the things I really enjoyed about the EMRAS year was the range of topics, from like biosensors to climate change, as Mohammed mentioned earlier. So these are aspects that I didn't necessarily have background in, but they seemed interesting to me, and the program encourages you to look at the things you're interested in and not to be afraid to explore them further. And in terms of skills and workshops and stuff, there's plenty of opportunities. Industry talks, for example, and I learned and improved so much of my communication skills, my people skills, from these courses, these talks, team challenge as well, for example. And then, so I've just completed my first year PhD, and it's as I had hoped for in terms of I have complete control over where my project goes. I've got good support from Axel himself, from AstraZeneca, from lab members, and also from the people I guess I've met through the program, whether in my year or in the years above. And then there's still conferences, seminars, workshops, industry talks. We still have access to all of these, and so there's, in terms of improving personal skills, there's still plenty to do even beyond the EMRAS year. There's still plenty of support from the CDT. One of the things I like now is in terms of when I think about the future, I still have plenty of time to decide, and by doing this program, I guess I've opened the door to many opportunities. After the PhD, I can decide whether I still want to do academia, whether I want to give industry another try. There's no rush with it, and I'm sure there's a lot of people I can talk to here about and get their opinion on what could be good and what couldn't be good. But yeah, ultimately there's still a lot of time to decide, and there's no rush really. I guess that concludes it from me. I think we're doing the Q&A now.
Yeah. Thanks, that's it. Do we have any?
So if anyone wants to send in their questions, if you type it into the chat, then I can read them out from here. And I'll have a looky. We'll give you a moment because I know there's going to be a bit of lag.
I'd like to add to what Hasib said is it's even for me. I wasn't sure what to do. I'm interested in entrepreneurship as well, so I wasn't sure if that's the right direction. Would I want to be a professor and so on? And this definitely Cambridge environment gives you a lot of experience because it's like a bubble where people can meet really easily. Like it's a small city, if we can call it a city. And you get to meet people like from all different backgrounds. There are events by industry lecturer, you can talk to them. There are events by professors, you can talk to them, talk about their experiences. There are just people in consultancy, people from MBA degrees. It's just this is something I really like about the Cambridge environment, that it's small. You get to meet people really easily from many different backgrounds, many different careers. So it's definitely a really good way to explore potentially future career options as well.
Yeah, I guess it's also from an academics point of view, it's the same. It kind of really matches that, right? I mean, you can really start talking to colleagues, students, and interested students from very different areas quite quickly. So there's a lot of social interaction that helps. There are lots of opportunity to sort of break the ice and have contact and start ideas. So a lot of things are starting really informally here, and I think that's something I enjoy a lot, and I think it's what we are pushing for in the program as well, in just giving things a try, having a go at something, and then even if you don't find out what you thought you would, you've learned something along the way, or you made a new friend, or you kind of have a link into a new area that you didn't know existed before.
It's really on the topic of friends. It's really easy to make friends. There are so many things, especially the formals. It's a really good way to communicate with people from sometimes similar backgrounds. For example, some events are specific to Olympics, some events specific to sort of religion, some events specific to a society. So it's really easy to communicate with like-minded individuals as well.
Cool. So I've got a couple of questions now.
Yes.
So one of them is, how can I select a project that has an industrial partnership? So I'll probably leave that for you, Axel, there.
Yeah. So I think every year we are working with companies who partner up with us to define such projects. So it typically happens in the way that a company has an idea, they want to do something, they approach us, and we explore whether this is something that's suitable to turn into an industrial project, where there's benefit for the student and for the company. And once a project of that nature has been found, we specifically advertise it. It will be on the website, it'll be on the CDT website and on the department website. It comes under the umbrella of the CDT, but it will be specifically highlighted as an area with a specific title and so on. So when you apply, you can select this project then directly, right, Hasib? Is that roughly how your experience was?
Yeah, so when I applied, I guess the project was titled AstraZeneca/MedImmune. Then it had a brief PhD title, and then it would say as part of the census CDT. So that it will be specifically advertised which ones are industry funded.
But also, even if say you were to start in the CDT without a specific project allocated from an industrial partner, then the other way, I suppose, is during the mini project phase, so in the second term, where you try out research in a lab and you choose to go to a specific lab for 6 weeks. When you arrive in October, there's a summary of lots of different projects that have been proposed. So there's a pool of maybe 15, 20, 25 projects, and on each project you'll normally have academics from 2 different departments working together, and sometimes it's an academic from one department and an industrial partner. And so those are other options, I suppose, in getting in touch into industrial projects, and they can develop into further funding potentially. But it's different routes, really, I guess.
Sort of following on from that, are there only certain research groups and supervisors tied to the programme, or can you choose any at Cambridge?
Well, I guess we have certain supervisors who are already in the pool of supervisors who submit projects, but that's not a definitive list, right? Those are people we've been working with already who are part of the program as such, but new people can join the program without any problem at all. So if there are specific people you want to work with in the first term when you arrive, you can make contact with other people. You can explore ideas with them. And if they're keen, I mean, it has to be a partnership, of course. They have to be excited about this. It has to be, of course, fit into the remit of sensing, right? I mean, it can't be in some completely different area. But sensing is a fairly broad field. So, you know, chances are there is a way to find an overlap. Then you can bring that supervisor into the program. That's really no problem from our side. So, you know, we have, I don't know how many PIs are involved, 80, something like this.
I think it's 80 plus, yeah.
Large number, and
it's always growing.
It is always growing, and you know, it's great to see new people join in. There are other CDTs in Cambridge as well, so it's not just sensing that exists in Cambridge, but so lots of academics are linked to multiple CDTs. So none of this is a problem. We really welcome that. So yeah.
We've got a few which are talking. I guess it's to do with funding. So would non-UK students be eligible for industry-funded projects?
So funding-wise, I think the studentships themselves are only funded at the level of UK students. Yeah. For international students, unfortunately, the fees are higher, as you will know. Typically, the projects are when they're offered, they're funded at home fee level. So we don't have any fully funded studentships for international students available as such. But what happens is we've had many international students who've joined the program who were able to compete for funding either within the university, so there's the Gates Trust, the Overseas Trust, right, or national funding programs, right? And so there are many options to top up the funding, but it then relies, so you can make your application, you can apply for a CDT space, and we can accommodate you in the CDT if you fulfill the criteria, you interview well, and we can offer you a place, but then it'll depend a little bit on what other funding opportunities you were able to secure competitively. But if you apply by the January deadline, you qualify, I think, for all the application for all the other funding bodies, except if you're a US citizen, you have to apply by the beginning of December to apply for Gates funding, I think.
Oh, I think it was October, maybe.
Yeah, I think for the US citizens it was early October.
Or end of October, really, yeah.
This one's probably for both of you guys. Did you do sort of any prep in terms of learning about sensors beforehand? So in particular, optical technology, did you learn anything about that? Or
I would say for the interview I looked into sensors a little bit, but prior to that I wouldn't say I had much knowledge about sensors in general. During chemical engineering, we do like microscopy and stuff, so there's some little insight into it. But yeah, I wouldn't say I had great background knowledge on sensors. One of the modules in the MRes year does cover the principles of sensing and gives you like a good introduction exactly as to what sensing was. I don't know about Mohammed.
Yeah, well, I have done an MRes relevant to sensing, so I had a little bit of idea what sensing is, but I also, just to prepare for the interview, I tried to read a little bit on Wikipedia for like 1 hour or something, just so if they ask a question,
and I mean,
I'm prepared.
Just to emphasize again, like the program takes people from loads of different backgrounds, so I guess that sort of background knowledge is not really used as an assessment.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you need to know roughly what a sensor is, right? I mean, have a rough idea what the topic is. You need to demonstrate you've got some interest and enthusiasm on the topic, right? So if you're asked what is a sensor, have an answer ready, right?
Exactly,
But this can be many things in different applications. So you can pick one area you're more comfortable with. and you talk a little bit more about that. Interview is more of a discussion, really, to probe, I guess. And like I said before, we're looking for potential. We're not looking for everything being polished, right? So you can be quite open about that in the interview as well. You can say, you know, I've got a good idea of this and that sensing, but I don't know much about that. And that's what I want to learn, right? I mean, that could be a very good way of taking that. Yeah.
Well, on that topic of interview, just be confident. If you don't know the answer, just say you don't, or just, you know, make up an answer that make you sound confident, I would say.
But also maybe try and show your thinking.
Show your thinking,
so
yeah,
if you don't know the answer to the question that you asked specifically, try and say, well, I don't know the answer about this, that, and the other specifically, but I know these things will play a role, or in order to answer this question, I would need to know this, that, and the other, and then I would do some work, or, you know, I mean, try and explain how you approach a problem. If you don't know the answer, well, if you know the answer, great, you can give the answer, right? But if you don't know the answer, explain how you're thinking about it, and make it clear what you would do in order to find out. But yeah, I mean, don't be underconfident about it either. That's,
and then I think finally the last couple of questions are sort of about the minimum requirements for applying for the CDT. So to you guys, I'd suggest actually if you drop us an email, because we can go over any concerns you might have. But essentially, if you do have a 2-1 in your undergrad, then you can apply. There's nothing to stop you from doing so. If you've got a master's, even better, or you know, support your application. But as long as you meet that minimum 2-1, you should be fine. Otherwise, we've just got a couple thanks from our viewers, just saying thank you for organising the event, and yes, we will be sharing this online later. I think we'll put links on our website and possibly check out on our YouTube channel.
Yeah, so follow us on your social media, and you'll be finding out for sure when things go online, right?
Well, thank you all for attending. We really hope that this was informative for you, taught you a little bit about what the program is. And again, if you have more questions, feel free to send it to the Sensor CDT. If you want more questions, if you have more questions about the student experience, feel free to email me or Hasib. We always get emails, LinkedIn messages about asking about the program. So yeah, feel free to ask us. We'll be happy to answer that. With that, we really thank you all for attending, and have a great day.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.